Chapter 23. Because the bread knife is missing, Patrick replied. He pointed to the empty slot in the knife holder on the counter. Gretchen's eyes moved to the tipped-over knife holder. I'm becoming suspicious of everyone, she thought. I've known everyone in this room for months, and now I'm starting to believe one of them is a killer. I'm sorry, Patrick, she murmured. We're all really scared and freaked out. Can you blame us? Hannah cried. We can't accuse each other all night long, Gretchen added. She tried to make her voice sound normal. We have to be calm and try to think clearly. And then what are we supposed to do? Hannah demanded sarcastically. Track down the killer? Give him a chance to kill another one of us? What else should we do? Gretchen snapped. Stand around and cry? That's all you've done tonight? The second the words left her mouth, Gretchen regretted them. Hannah stared at her, mouth open in surprise and hurt. I'm sorry, Hannah. I know you feel bad about Cindy. We all do, Gretchen apologized. I'm just really on edge. I think we all need to cool off. Why don't we head back into the living room? Jackson suggested. I think we're finished in here. Gretchen followed after the others. As she stepped around Cindy's body, she tried not to look, but she couldn't help it. She felt her gaze magnetically pulled down to the floor. Cindy's blue eyes stared up blankly at the ceiling. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream. Bloodstains spattered the flour around her. It's like a scene out of one of those slasher movies Cindy hated so much, Gretchen thought. Gretchen felt dizzy. She leaned against the refrigerator. She pressed her face against its cool surface and took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes, she felt better. She started walking again, but then stopped. Whoa, wait a minute, she called after her friends. What is it? Jackson asked. He turned and strode back toward her. The others followed. What's wrong? Jackson demanded. Look. Gretchen pointed to a dark splotch on the floor that looked different from the rest. What was it? Gretchen knelt down. She felt her pulse race. A footprint? No, that wasn't right. Not a footprint. She saw a pattern, a design. It was a boot print in the flour. They all stared down at it. No one spoke. Slowly, Gretchen guessed at what must have happened. Cindy and the killer were in the kitchen. They were arguing. Cindy slapped the killer. He dove at her. Cindy backed away. She bumped the flour canister and knocked it over. Flour scattered everywhere. The killer stabbed Cindy. She fell into the flour, bleeding. Then the killer walked away, stepping into the spilled flour, leaving a boot print behind. Such a clear boot print, Gretchen murmured. If the killer stepped in the flour, Gil began. Then there would be flour on the bottom of his boot, Gretchen finished. I get it, Jackson said. The boot print will help us figure out who the killer is. We all suspect Patrick, so let's start with him, Marco urged. Grab him. Gil and Jackson dove at Patrick. They each grabbed an arm, holding tight. Hey, Patrick protested. What are you doing? He twisted and turned, trying to break free. Give me a break, guys, he called. Come on, give me a break. Let go. Check out his boots, Jackson ordered Gretchen. They should be by the front door with the others. Gretchen hurried out of the kitchen and raced for the front door. Their hiking boots were lined up against the wall. She searched for Patrick's boots. Hannah's had bright red laces, while Gil's laces were neon yellow. Jackson's hiking boots were black. Marco's were olive green. Gretchen carefully picked up Patrick's boots by their tops. She took a deep breath. Was there flour on the sole? Chapter 24. Yes, a thin coating of white flour on the heel and sole of his right boot. Gretchen gasped. The shock made her head spin. She felt like dropping the boots on the floor and running out of the front door. But she took a deep breath, then studied the bottom of Patrick's boot again. She didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to believe that Patrick murdered Cindy. Sweet, lovable Patrick, always joking, always kidding around. He could never do something this evil, this wicked. She didn't want to believe it. She liked him too much. But there was no denying the evidence. The blood on his shirt, his cap in Cindy's hand, and now the flour on the bottom of his boot. Carrying the boots, she walked slowly back to the kitchen. Everyone hovered in the doorway, waiting to learn what she had discovered, waiting to learn who the killer was. Patrick. Gretchen stepped back into the kitchen. Well, Marco demanded, what did you find? There's flour on the bottom of one of his boots, Gretchen announced. She lifted the boot so everyone could see the flour on the sole. Gretchen's gaze fixed on Patrick. She saw disbelief wash over Patrick's face. I don't know how that flour got there, I swear it. It got there when you murdered Cindy, Marco accused. But I didn't kill Cindy, Patrick cried. I swear it, you've got to believe me. Hannah slumped into a chair at the kitchen table and began sobbing again. Why did we ever agree to come out to this island tonight? She wailed. We should have stayed in Shadyside. If we had, none of this would have happened. Cindy would still be alive. We don't know that, Gil stated. If Patrick wanted Cindy dead, he could have killed her anywhere. I didn't kill her, Patrick insisted. The escaped prisoner did. Gretchen, you believe me, don't you? Gretchen swallowed hard. She didn't know how to answer. She wanted to believe Patrick was innocent. His pleas sounded so truthful and honest, but all the evidence pointed to him. I want to believe you, Patrick, she whispered. Really, I do, but I can't. What do we do now? Gil asked. First, let's tie Patrick up, Marco suggested. Then we can decide what to do without having to worry about getting killed. He pulled open kitchen drawers until he found a coil of rope. Gretchen stood behind Hannah as Gil and Jackson pushed Patrick into a kitchen chair. Then Marco wound the rope around Patrick's body. No, Patrick protested, trying to break free. This isn't fair. I didn't do anything. Don't hurt him, Gretchen begged, as Marco forced Patrick back down. We're not going to hurt him, Marco told her. We're just making sure he doesn't hurt us. After tightly securing Patrick to the chair, Marco stepped back. Now what? Gretchen asked. We searched through his things, Marco replied. Why? Gretchen asked. What's the point? Hannah demanded. To see if he's hiding anything, Marco explained. You can't go through my things, Patrick protested. Don't tell us what we can do, Marco snapped. We're in charge, not you. Go ahead, Patrick sneered. Look through my things. You won't find anything, because I didn't do anything. You're wasting your time. Gretchen left the hiking boots on the kitchen table and followed after Gil, Jackson, and Marco. She paused in the kitchen doorway. Hannah, aren't you coming? Hannah didn't answer. She slumped over the kitchen table, her head in her hands, her body trembling. She looked paralyzed with fright. Hannah, get up and come with us, Gretchen said calmly. The guys need our help. Hannah nodded. She stood up shakily and followed Gretchen out of the kitchen. The front room was cold and dark. The fire had died down, and only a few candles were still burning. Gretchen shivered. Was it only a few hours ago that they'd been laughing and partying? It seems like a lifetime ago. I found Patrick's backpack, Marco announced, lifting it from behind the couch. Marco opened the backpack and spilled the contents onto the coffee table. Gretchen saw a pair of white socks fall out first, then a rolled-up t-shirt, a pack of chewing gum, Patrick's toothbrush and toothpaste, some loose change, and a motorcycle magazine. Gil, Jackson, and Marco sifted through the items. So far, nothing looked very interesting. Maybe they wouldn't find anything. Maybe, despite all the evidence, they were wrong, and Patrick hadn't killed Cindy. Maybe he was telling the truth. At the edge of the coffee table, Gretchen noticed a folded-up piece of paper that had fallen out of the backpack. Curious, she picked it up and unfolded it, and read the few words written on it, and gasped. Chapter 25. She held out the sheet of paper to the others. You can stop looking, here's all the proof we need, she declared. She heard her own voice tremble. Patrick is definitely the killer? What is it? Jackson demanded. What did you find? A note from Cindy to Patrick, Gretchen answered. Read it, Jackson urged. Tell us what it says. Gretchen cleared her throat and lowered her eyes to the note. She read, Patrick, I can't keep our secret anymore. I'm going to tell my parents, no matter what happens. Don't try to stop me. Cindy. Gretchen heard Hannah gasp. What kind of secret could Patrick and Cindy have been keeping? Could something have been going on between Cindy and Patrick, Gretchen whispered, without any of us knowing? Why wouldn't they tell us? Hannah asked. You know how strict her parents are, Gretchen reminded them. Maybe Cindy didn't think they let her see him? Tell me about it, Gil muttered. They didn't think any guy was good enough for Cindy. Marco shook his head. It can't be that. Even if Cindy didn't want her parents to know she was seeing Patrick, she would have told us. We were her best friends. It has to be something else. Like what? Gretchen asked. She couldn't think of any other explanation. She felt so confused. Let's keep looking through Patrick's stuff, Marco urged. We found the note. We may find something else. Gretchen sighed and headed across the living room to the corner where the sleeping bags were piled up. She searched for Patrick's sleeping bag and found it on the bottom of the pile. This is probably going to be a waste of time, she said, pulling it out. Gretchen unrolled the sleeping bag. Oh no, she moaned. Oh no, oh no. Gretchen staggered back from the sleeping bag, covering her eyes with her hands. Jackson rushed to her side. She felt his hand on her arm, steadying her. "What is it?" he cried. Marco, Gil, and Hannah hurried over, surrounding her. "What's wrong?" Marco asked. "What did you find?" Gretchen pointed to the floor. There, in the middle of Patrick's sleeping bag, was the missing bread knife, its blade covered with dark stains. Chapter 26. "The knife used to kill Cindy?" Gretchen murmured. They all stood staring down at the sleeping bag, at the knife. Gretchen's gaze fixed on the razor-sharp edge of the blade. She shivered and tore her eyes away. The thought of the knife slashing into Cindy made her feel sick. She hugged her arms around her stomach and forced herself not to look at it again. "I can't believe it," she heard Hannah moan. "I can't believe that, Patrick." Gretchen suddenly felt lightheaded. She staggered to the couch and sat down. She dropped her head down to her knees and swallowed deep breaths. She heard someone walk toward her. "Are you okay?" Jackson asked softly. Gretchen pushed her hair out of her face. "I'm okay," she answered. "I guess." "This is all the proof we need," Marco said. "Let's see Patrick try to deny this." Marco led the way back to the kitchen. "I can't go back in there," Hannah whispered. She clutched Gretchen's arm. "Stay out here with me, please." "I want to hear what Patrick says when he sees the knife," Gretchen told her. She put her arms around Hannah and gave her a hug. "I'll come back any minute, okay?" "Okay," Hannah nodded. She twisted the bottom of her sweater in her hands. "I'll wait out here by the door. I'll be okay." Gretchen turned from Hannah and stepped into the kitchen. Marco, Jackson, and Gil stood in a grim circle around Patrick. "I knew you wouldn't find anything," Patrick said angrily. "Now untie me." "You're wrong, Patrick," Gretchen said. "We did find things. 2 things. All the blood drained from Patrick's face. His mouth fell open, and he stared at Gretchen as if he hadn't heard her correctly. "Excuse me?" Gretchen stared hard at Patrick. Either he's telling the truth and didn't murder Cindy, or he's giving the performance of his life, she thought. "We found 2 things," Gretchen repeated. "We found a note in your backpack, from Cindy. She said she was going to tell her parents about the secret the 2 of you shared. She said she couldn't keep it any more." "I don't know what you're talking about," Patrick said through gritted teeth. "Cindy and I didn't share any secret. The note is a fake. It has to be a total fake. I never got any note from Cindy." They all stared hard at Patrick, studying his face. Patrick sighed. "What else did you find?" Gretchen took a deep breath. "The missing bread knife, smeared with blood, in your sleeping bag." "You murdered her," Gil cried suddenly. I didn't, Patrick screamed. "But, Patrick," Gretchen cut in. "How do you explain the knife in your sleeping bag?" Gretchen asked. "I don't know, I really don't. I didn't put it there," Patrick insisted. "But it was there," Gretchen stated, "and it's smeared with blood." "I didn't murder Cindy," Patrick cried. "Why won't anyone listen to me? If you'd only untie me, I could help you figure this out." "Save it," Gil ordered harshly. He moved closer to Patrick. "We're not untying you. We're going to hold you until we can get the police. When they get here, you can tell them that you're not innocent." "Please," Patrick begged. "You have to listen to me." Gretchen shook her head. "There's nothing left to say," she told him. "There's just too much proof." "That's the whole point," Patrick explained. "If I killed Cindy, would I make it so easy for you? Would I leave so much evidence around?" Patrick's eyes darted frantically around the kitchen. "If I was the killer, would I hide the knife in my sleeping bag?" Patrick demanded. "Would I walk around in a bloody shirt and leave flour on my boots? Would I leave my cap in Cindy's hand and leave her note in my own backpack?" Patrick's eyes pleaded with Gretchen. She suddenly felt uncomfortable. Patrick's words made sense. "Gretchen," Patrick pleaded, "you're the only one willing to keep an open mind. You know I couldn't have done this." Gretchen swallowed hard and stared down at the floor. "Please, just think about it," Patrick continued. "Somebody is trying to make me look guilty. I'm not stupid. If I were the killer, I wouldn't leave clues all over the cabin." He let out an angry cry. "Don't you see? Someone is trying to pin the blame on me. It has to be one of you." Gretchen turned to the open doorway. She saw Hannah standing there. Their eyes met. "Sometimes I wish she was dead." Hannah's words about Cindy echoed in Gretchen's mind. "You're not going to listen to him, are you?" Hannah asked shrilly. "He'll say anything, so we'll untie him. If we let him loose, we'll all be in danger." "Don't you see what's happening here?" Patrick demanded. "Someone in this cabin is trying to frame me." "Frame you?" Gretchen asked. "Why would someone want to frame you?" "I don't know," Patrick explained, "but they went too far. They planted too much evidence. If I killed Cindy, I'd try to hide the evidence. I wouldn't leave it all lying around." From his seat at the table, Jackson cast a doubtful look in Gretchen's direction. She could see the question in his eyes. He had his doubts, too. Gretchen turned to Gil and Marco, sitting on a counter. Both looked uneasy. She could tell they were also unsure. "He's right," Jackson agreed. "We've been stupid." Gretchen didn't know what to believe. She paced the kitchen. She took Cindy's note out of her pocket and read it again. She saw Patrick watching her, straining at the ropes to see the note. "Is that the note you found?" he asked. "Let me see it." Gretchen stopped in front of Patrick's chair. She unfolded the paper and held it up in front of him. Patrick leaned forward, pulling the ropes taut. Gretchen watched as his eyes moved across the handwritten words. When he reached the bottom, his mouth dropped open. "I don't believe it," he cried. Chapter 27. "It's a phony, a complete phony," Patrick declared. "How can you say that?" Gretchen asked him. "I've seen Cindy's handwriting hundreds of times. So have the rest of us." "But it isn't Cindy's handwriting," Patrick insisted. "It looks like her handwriting to me," Gretchen replied. "Sure, if you look at it quickly, but you missed something," Patrick said heatedly. "Something that proves Cindy didn't write it." "What?" Gretchen demanded. "Cindy always dotted the I in her name with a heart. Don't you remember?" Patrick reminded her. "Look at her signature. It doesn't have a heart." Gretchen flipped the note over and studied the handwriting. Instantly, she saw what she had missed earlier. No heart. "She's right," she said. "The I isn't dotted with a heart, and Cindy always did that." "Let me see it," Hannah declared, walking into the room. "I was Cindy's best friend. I would know her handwriting better than any of you." Hannah snatched the note out of Gretchen's hand. Her eyes traveled over it, and then she returned it. "That's Cindy's handwriting," she said firmly. "Even if the heart is missing, it doesn't matter." "But Cindy always used a heart," Patrick repeated. "She never forgot it." Gil sighed. "He's right." "Cindy and I didn't have any secret," Patrick insisted. "Whoever wrote this note was trying to frame me, but they messed up by forgetting to use a heart." Gretchen passed the note to the others. Now no one was sure if it was Cindy's handwriting or not. "Why don't we look in Cindy's bag?" Gil suggested. "Maybe she has something with her handwriting on it." "Good idea," Gretchen agreed. "That way we'll know for sure if she wrote the note." They hurried into the front room. "There it is," Gretchen cried, spotting it under the couch where it had fallen. Sitting on the couch, Gretchen pulled the black bag onto her lap and began emptying it out. There wasn't much inside. Lip gloss, eyeshadow, a pack of chewing gum, house keys, a compact, hairbrush, sunglasses. "Is that all?" Marco asked. Gretchen scraped the bottom of the bag and brushed across a few scraps of paper. She grabbed them and pulled them out. "These might have something written on them," she announced excitedly. She unfolded the pages slowly as the others gathered around her. She looked down at the pages, her pulse racing, as she tried to figure out what was written on them. "They're notes," she murmured, scanning a list of names, dates, and places. "Notes from history class?" "Let's compare it to the note we found," Jackson urged. Gretchen pulled out the note to Patrick. She placed it on top of the coffee table next to Cindy's history notes. The handwriting looked identical. Gretchen's eyes traveled back and forth between the two sheets of paper, searching for differences. She could see that Cindy's history notes were written in a rushed, hurried style, but they were easy to read. The note from Patrick's backpack looked neater. Gretchen had the feeling it had been written more carefully. The letters were crisper, more detailed, but it was still Cindy's handwriting, except for one small difference. "Take a look at the Y's," Gretchen pointed out. "What about them?" Hannah asked. "The Y's in the note from Patrick's backpack are different from the Y's in Cindy's notes," Gretchen told them. She felt her heart pound as she spoke. "Cindy's Y's are loopy, but the Y's in the note from Patrick's backpack have squiggles." Gretchen set down the notes. Her hand trembled. "You know what this means?" she said. Marco whistled softly. "Patrick is telling the truth. Someone is trying to frame him." "But who?" Gretchen whispered. "Who?" Chapter 28. She stared at her friends. All wore stunned expressions on their faces. She thought she knew them, but did she? Could one of them have murdered Cindy? If they were wrong about Patrick, then the killer was still loose. A chill of fear swept down Gretchen's back. She shook it away. "I can't allow myself to be afraid. If I'm frightened, I won't be able to think clearly. I need to keep my wits," she told herself. Gretchen took a deep breath. She folded the two notes and slipped them into the front pocket of her jeans. "We'd better tell Patrick what we found," she said. Gil led the way back to the kitchen. "Well," Patrick asked, "did you find anything in Cindy's bag?" Gretchen nodded her head. "We did." "And?" "You were right," Gretchen told him. She pulled out the 2 notes and showed them to Patrick. The note in the backpack was a fake. I told you, Patrick exclaimed. I told you I didn't murder Cindy. Well, we had to make sure, Gil grumbled. Don't you think we should untie him? Gretchen asked. Marco and Jackson began loosening the ropes. They fell to the floor. Patrick jumped out of the chair, stretching his stiff limbs. What do we do now? Gretchen asked. We need a game plan, Patrick replied. Why don't we all head back into the living room? I can't stand being in here with Cindy's body. Wait a minute, Gil cried. Gretchen spun to face Gil. What is it? What's wrong? Where's Hannah? Gil asked. Gretchen gazed around the kitchen. Hannah? Gretchen called. She ran out into the hallway. No, Hannah. Are you out here? Answer me. She darted into the front room. Empty. Gretchen turned as the others rushed in behind her. She's not in here? Gretchen cried. I'll check upstairs, Marco said. I'll come with you, Gil said. They ran to the stairs, calling Hannah's name. Then they pounded up the short staircase 2 steps at a time. Patrick and Jackson both wore grim expressions. Neither said a word. She's not up here, Gil called down from the second-floor landing. He and Marco came running back down. Not upstairs, Gil repeated breathlessly. Gretchen stared back at him, unable to speak, unable to move. The choked words escaped her throat. Hannah has disappeared? Chapter 29. We've got to find her, Gil cried. He turned and ran to the door. Wait a second, Marco said. He caught up with Gil and grabbed him. We'll go with you. Just wait, Marco told him. We need to think for a moment. Think about what? Hannah could be fighting for her life, Gil cried. He swung his arm and shoved Marco hard. Marco stumbled back until he hit the wall. The others stared at Gil, stunned. I've never seen him explode like that, Gretchen thought. Gretchen hurried to get her jacket. She wanted to go out and look for Hannah, too. On a small table by the coat rack, she saw a folded-up scrap of paper propped against a lamp. Look, Gretchen cried and pointed at the paper. A note? She snatched up the note and unfolded it. What does it say? Jackson asked. Read it, Gil urged. It's from Hannah, Gretchen told them. She read the note aloud. I can't stay here one more second with a killer. I'm too frightened. Gretchen dropped the note on the lamp table. She raced to the front door and yanked it open. Outside, on a muddy path leading away from the cabin, she saw footprints. Gretchen turned back to the others. We have to go after her. She's not safe all alone out there. She didn't get much of a head start, Marco declared. We should be able to catch up with her. Hurry, Gretchen urged. It's raining again. Pretty soon her footprints will be gone. Patrick, Gil, and Marco pulled on their boots and ran out the front door. Gretchen slipped on her jacket, then hurried to the living room where she had left her boots. A jumble of thoughts raced through her mind, frightening thoughts. Did Hannah really leave because she was frightened, she wondered, or did she run away because she killed Cindy? Hannah and Cindy were always so competitive, and Hannah had really resented and disliked Cindy, for so many reasons. But enough reasons to kill her? Gretchen couldn't believe she was thinking these things about her friend. Hannah wasn't a killer, but Hannah had been so eager from the start to prove that Patrick was the killer. Was it because Hannah had planted the note in his backpack? Had she planted the bloody knife in his sleeping bag? Gretchen found her boots beside the fireplace where she left them. As she tied up the laces, she felt someone watching her. She raised her eyes to find Jackson standing by the couch, staring at her. His intense stare frightened her. She heard the front door slam. The others had hurried out. I'm all alone here with Jackson, she realized. Why was he staring at her like that? Why was he moving toward her so steadily? Why didn't he say anything? Gretchen felt her throat tighten. She could barely breathe. Her eyes darted frantically around the living room, searching for anything she could use to defend herself. Her gaze fell upon the wood bin and the heavy pile of logs stacked inside. I could pick up a log and bash it over Jackson's head if I have to, she thought. She took a step back. She wanted to put as much space between them as she could, and she wanted to get close enough to the wood bin to grab one of the logs. But each time she took a step back, he took one toward her. Jackson stared into her eyes. I guess you suspect, Jackson said.